Hi, I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel, Jamie Sage Knits. Today I'll be sharing a video about my beginning of 2025 project planning. I've thought through some goals that I have around my knitting for this year, and I decided to also include my Make 9 in this video. In case you haven't heard of Make 9, it is basically a concept of determining 9 projects that you want to work on, I think inspired by a source on Instagram where it would show like a grid of the 9 squares, like the photos that were most liked from the year, and then someone in the knitting community had the idea to do kind of a similar thing, like 9 squares, but with knitting projects that you're interested in doing for the coming year. So I thought it has been really fun looking at other people's Make 9s, and I figured I would do my own. I am planning to do more than 9 projects this year, so I decided to use this as an opportunity to reflect on some cohesive themes or goals that I want to keep in mind, and also as a tool for accountability, so including some of my projects that might be more challenging or where the process itself might not be quite as fun or as exciting, but I am really intrigued by learning a new skill or, honoring one of my values or just having a final product that I'm really happy with. So before I fully dive in, I wanted to mention the sweater I'm wearing today. This is the Snowdrops pullover by Nomad Stitches, which is an all-over lace kind of snowflake pattern. I knit this in Knit Picks Gloss DK in the color Plume. This is a 70% merino wool, 30% silk yarn, so it has a beautiful sheen to it, and I'm wearing it against the skin and I find it really comfortable. I'm actually not sure if it's superwash, but I do find this yarn really soft, and it's this beautiful, vibrant kind of plum color, so I'm really pleased with it. So I thought of a few themes that are around what kind of garments I want to invest in, either challenging myself or kind of fleshing out my wardrobe, what kinds of yarn, what kind of colors, styles, things like that. So in terms of garments, if you've watched my videos before, you've probably heard me mention I love working on sweaters. I do get a lot of utility out of them, but at this point I have a number of sweaters and I'd like to move a little bit away from making sweaters, not entirely, but you'll notice a fair portion of my Make 9 is not going to be sweaters. So the types of garments that I would love to invest in more would be dresses, summer knits like tanks and t-shirts, and socks. I've actually never completed a pair of socks. So that is definitely on my list for this year. And I noticed that last summer, it was the first time I made some summer garments like tank tops, and I got a lot of use out of them. I really loved being able to throw them on. I knit them with Knitting for Olive Merino in different colors, and I found that to be a really breathable choice for the fabric it created, and it was actually pretty comfortable even in our New York City summer, which is pretty humid and can get really hot. So I would love to carry that into this year, make some more projects that I'm really excited about, and that I'll get a lot of use out of this summer. And I, like I said, also would love to make at least one dress. I have one knitted sweater dress already, and I would love to make just more dresses to flesh out that part of my wardrobe because I love wearing dresses. So it'd be great to have some knitted items. In terms of yarn, I have spoken in some previous podcasts about how up until a few months ago, I was kind of on a tighter budget with my knitting hobby. I bought a lot of yarn kind of in bulk online. I bought a lot of drops yarn, which I still think is a great option. But I'm really interested now that I have a little bit more flexibility in my budget in getting into just kind of like nicer yarn, different fibers, just higher quality fibers, hand-dyed yarn, indie dyers, things like that. And so you'll see that a bunch throughout some of these projects as well. And I've realized that I really love fingering weight yarn, especially single ply fingering. There's just something about it that I find very entrancing. I love the feeling of knitting with it. I love how it takes the dye, and I would just love to incorporate that more. And something that I think is really helpful about the fingering weight yarn is that if I'm investing a little bit more into higher quality yarn than if I'm knitting with fingering weight or like a lightweight yarn, it will most likely take longer to complete a project compared to knitting on larger needles. So that helps me get more enjoyment and more time out of that same investment, if that makes sense. I also want to think about the color and style of projects that I'm working on. I am interested in fitting in more with my color season, which I haven't done a formal analysis, but my suspicion, based on my own research, is that I'm either a warm spring or maybe a light spring. And I have noticed that certain colors flatter my complexion and my features more than others. That doesn't mean that I will never wear the colors that don't go as well with my season. For instance, I am not recommended to wear black, but I will always have black in my wardrobe. I'm a New Yorker, and I just think it's such a staple color. But I am interested in moving away from that and, for example, incorporating like more creams and off-whites rather than whites, more kind of like vibrant, light, warm colors. And in general, in the past, I had stayed away from colors, and I think it was in part because I didn't really know which colors flattered me, so it was easier to stick to neutrals. But now that I know a little bit more about which colors go well with my complexion, I'm really excited about the option of having more colorful pieces in my wardrobe and then being able to mix them into like a balanced outfit, incorporating some neutral components. So you'll see that, and I want to, like I said, have a balanced outfit, or have more pieces in my wardrobe that can be incorporated into balanced outfits. I really want to prioritize making pieces with simple and elegant construction and kind of timeless pieces. In the past few months, I've made some really fun, kind of like busy pieces, and that has been really enjoyable to knit. I love wearing them. They're like really the focal point of an outfit, but I've noticed that the pieces I get the most wear out of and am just kind of the most pleased with their practicality are the more classic ones, like my caramel sweater, which is just this beautiful kind of cherry red, and that one I get a ton of wear out of, even though I just finished it a few weeks ago. So I'm gonna bring that theme into the coming year as well. And then I also have a couple of themes or goals that are around challenging myself and expanding my knitting capabilities. The first one is playing with gauge. I always see people talking about like gauge math and kind of adapting patterns, and I have never really done that. I've always, I mean, not to say I always knit a gauge swatch, but if the pattern says, use a DK weight yarn on 4mm needles, I'm going to use a DK weight yarn on 4mm needles and not really like play around with it too much. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. I like the ease of just following the instructions, but I think it will help me in being able to use more yarn and just have more freedom if I'm able to adapt patterns. And you'll see one of my goals is like really centered around the idea of challenging myself with gauge math. And the last and maybe the most lofty goal that I have is to self-draft a pattern. And in general, I want to challenge myself to modify patterns more and really think through the construction and think through what I see with the pattern, and if I actually like all of it, or if it's just easiest to follow their construction. And if there are aspects that I don't like as much for my own style, I do want to challenge myself to change that and have an end product that I'm really happy with and that really fits my body and my personal style. So you'll notice at the end of my Make 9, I do have one goal around completely self-drafting a pattern, which I think will be a fun challenge that I'm excited about, but also a little nervous. So, as I mentioned, part of my purpose with this Make 9, because I do know I'll be making more than 9 projects this year, is for accountability. So, I mean, some of these I'm super excited about and I don't need the accountability, but some of these I think it is really helpful having this community and being able to share with you my intentions, maybe get some feedback or advice or encouragement, and then hopefully get to come back to you later and share how things are going. And the reason I say that is because if you've been watching for a while, you know this first project is like my, what is it called? Like my white whale. I think that's a Moby Dick reference. And this is the Melides Dress by Inez Oliveira. This is something I'm carrying over from my spring and summer knitting from last year. It was slow and steady progress for a few months, and then I just kind of dropped it at the end of the summer when I realized I wasn't going to finish it in time to wear it that season. And so now my goal is to finish it in time to wear it for like this coming spring and summer. And for a while, I was like kind of trying to pick it up every day or two, knit away at like a couple of rows, chip away at it, but I just haven't gotten back to it. And to take a step back, it is a tank top dress that, I mean, it can be knit to any length, but I wanted to do it as is shown in the pattern to a kind of midi, like mid-calf length, and it's knit flat. So this is like an endless sea of stockinette, especially for the skirt. It's just knit flat back and forth with like hundreds of stitches on the needles. hundreds of stitches on the needles. And so even just one row would take like 15-20 minutes. And it's knit with Knitting for Olive pure silk, which I think is going to create a beautiful product, but it's not the most pleasurable to knit with. It's like it's not itchy for sure. It's a little bit rough when you're knitting with it. I don't think the fabric itself is like noticeably rough, but it's just not the most fun to knit with. I'm knitting it on metal needles because, what are these, like 3.25? Yeah, 3.25 millimeter needles. And I prefer wooden needles. So there's just a lot of things about this project that are a little bit discouraging and prevent me from wanting to knit on it. I will say I'll try to do like a try on and put a clip in. I think the dress is down to like the knees. So proportionally, like I don't have that much left, but I just got kind of burned out on this project and I need to get myself back into it. It is a beautiful, like, not made to measure, but there's a lot more size flexibility than most patterns. You measure yourself at 4 different places, like your bust, your waist, your high hip, your low hip, and then plug them into the pattern so that it adjusts not only like those segments, but also the increases and decreases between them to have a nice fitted, flattering design. And I didn't mention I chose the color Plum Rose in the Knitting for Olive pure silk, which I think is in my color season. It's kind of this like, plum rose terracotta type color. It's a beautiful neutral. This fits in with a lot of my goals. It is a dress. It is a summer knit. It's using a color that I think is in my color season. It's using fingering weight yarn. It's definitely cohesive, not busy, simple and elegant construction. Pretty much almost everything it fits in with. So I really, really want to finish this up and be able to wear it. I've already put so much work into it, and I think it's going to be a beautiful end product. I'm just a little bit discouraged on it. So I am putting that number 1. Next, we have another one that I probably need the encouragement and the accountability. As I mentioned, I've never completed a pair of socks. So one of my goals for the year is to knit a pair of socks. And so one of my Make 9 spots is going to go to the Euterpe Socks, which I referenced in my last podcast. This is a pattern by Sari Nordlund from her book, Softly Timeless Knits. And I think the texture is so beautiful. It uses cabling with a lot of twisted stitches. And I love the appearance, but it does make the progress a little bit slow going. So kind of chipping away at it. I'm up to the heel increases on the first sock, and I think the body of the foot and the toe is looking really nice. I'm using the yarn Malabrigo Ultimate Sock in the color Pearl, and this is the medium size. There are 3 sizes in the pattern. And yeah, nothing in particular is challenging me with this. It's just that it's really tiny. I'm using Magic Loop on ChowGoo fixed circulars. It's probably a little bit short for Magic Loop, but I just happened to have a single pair of ChowGoo fixed circulars, which were 2.5 millimeters, which is the needle size that's called for. So I just felt like I kind of had to use them and make it work. And I think it's working fine. There's maybe a little bit of a jog, but I think it looks fine. So yeah, this is going to get spot number 2. I really, really, really want to finish these this year. I do not want to get second sock syndrome. And I actually really love the toe up construction. I think that's helpful because I find the toe cast on really fun. And the little increases, it's fast because they're small stitch numbers. So I'm really hoping that these first 2 I will finish because I think both of them are lovely patterns. That second one, the socks, are actually for my fiance, but a lot of things about the pattern also fit in with my goals. It's fingering weight. It's a beautiful kind of neutral color, and I think it is a very kind of elegant design. So yeah, those are kind of my biggest challenges, I would say, out of the Make 9. The next thing I want to talk about, I would say actually is also a bit of a challenge or a bit intimidating. And I had mentioned in my podcast that I wanted to start this pattern. So this is the Cognac Sweater by Atelier Castine, and it is a loose gauge, beautiful, simple sweater. It's recommended to be knit with fingering weight yarn held together with a mohair on 6mm needles, so quite an open gauge. And I decided to use this fingering weight yarn that contains mohair. So you can see it has a little bit of a halo, but not as much as like a mohair strand. And I feel like there's a little bit more of a halo than is showing up on camera, but you can see it here. So because of that, I did a couple of gauge swatches and I decided to use 4mm needles, which is obviously very different than what the pattern calls for. And so it will require some gauge math. I did the calculations and I'm pretty sure that I would go from knitting a size like 2 or 3 with 6mm needles to knitting a size 7 with 4mm needles. So I'm gonna go ahead with that. I've already wound up this ball by hand of the yarn that I'll be using, and I am very excited about this yarn. It also meets with a few of my criteria, which is fingering weight, indie dyer, and just kind of like a nicer yarn. This is from the small dyer Wool Through the Trees on Etsy. She's a just kind of like independent dyer in Rhode Island, and this is the color Hemlock, which I just really fell in love with. It is, I would say, a warm toned forest green. Sometimes I have trouble telling the undertones, but it's definitely showing up like cooler toned on camera, but I'll take a photo. There's a lot of like yellow in this green, I would say, and then there's kind of like a black halo from or a very, very dark green halo from the mohair. So it's a beautiful dimensional yarn, and I'm very, very excited to get it started, but I am a bit nervous because of the gauge math. So I'll have to see how that goes. But like I said, this fits with a few of my goals and hopefully will turn out nice. There are 2 versions of the pattern. I'm planning to do the one with the like ribbing around the collar. There's one that just has like a more like raw edge, and I like the ribbing one as a more classic design. And I feel like this yarn is a really perfect example of something that I like, where it's going to be like a stockinette, pretty cohesive sweater, but there is like a lot of depth in the yarn dyeing itself, so it's not going to be like a super flat or boring project. Yeah. Next up, we have, I think, my only color work project in here. I mentioned earlier, I've been loving color work. I've been doing some pretty like busy, interesting patterns, and that just really becomes like the focal point of the outfit, which can be fun. But I decided I would like to do something that's a little bit more clean, geometric, simple color work. So I'll be doing the Mosaic Sweater by Pernille Larsen. I found this a few months ago and committed to the idea, bought the yarn in my fall like big drops order, and this is the last project quantity of drops that I have. So after this, I'll be really committing to my goal of trying out new yarns, more indie dyers. So this one I'm planning to do this geometric style in cream or off-white and black. So this is one where I know technically black is not in my color season. If I hold it up, I don't know if you can really tell, but in any case, but I just know with my wardrobe, having black and cream is going to be a lot more cohesive and go with more things than like cream and brown. So I'm excited about that. I don't know if I mentioned, I'm using Drops Flora, which is their fingering weight wool alpaca blend, and then Drops Kid Silk, which is their mohair. And this is in the color off-white and black. So yeah, that one I'm pretty excited about. It has instructions to do steeking or to avoid steeking, and I think I'm gonna just knit it flat, especially because the last time I did steeking with mohair, it got caught in the sewing machine. So I don't know if that is a typical thing. Like, let me know down below if you've had experiences steeking or like sewing in the steek reinforcements for a project with mohair, but I think I'll just knit it flat and like try something that I haven't done in a while. I've knit color work flat before, but yeah, it is, I think, a very like classic piece as well. Oh, I have a mohair stuck. is a classic piece, and I'm excited to have this one, which is like a little bit of a statement, but also a bit of a neutral as well. And this one actually is on 6mm needles, so it's one of maybe the largest one that I have in this collection of projects. Next up, I have a project that I referenced also in my last podcast. This is the Concha top by Caledonia Dreamin'. I think this is a really elegant and classic design, but still like simple and pretty casual. It's another one that I'm planning to make in a cream color, and hopefully it'll be kind of a wardrobe staple, but I am hoping to wear it for the kind of morning after brunch for my wedding, so like a more casual event. And I really like the subtle touches of visual interest with like the vertical stripes and the crochet border. I'm planning to use Ilana Camisole in the color Bone, and this is an 85% organic cotton, 15% baby alpaca. So it's really soft and lovely, and it's quite thin. It's like a fingering weight, so I'm going to hold it double and see how that goes. For this one, I probably will do a gauge swatch because I'm concerned even held double, it might still be a little thin. So I might have to size down on the needles and then size up 1 or 2 sizes in the pattern. So we'll see about that. This one might include some gauge math as well. All right, next up we have one that I am super excited for. This is the Ilana Camisole by Masha Ziablikova. And I love the classic cables, and it is knit on, I believe, 3mm needles, and it calls for a fingering weight yarn. So this goes with a few of my goals: to do fingering weight, to do summer knits like tank tops, and also to do something that's like pretty simple and classic, but still with a bit of visual interest, with little cables. And I'm also using a hand-dyed, kind of indie-dyed, like indie dye yarn, which fulfills some more of my goals. So this is from Neighborhood Fiber Co. It is their rustic fingering in the color Edna Gardens, which I got at Rhinebeck, and it's this beautiful kind of like periwinkle purple color, and I'm very excited for this one. I think it fits in with my color season, and I just think it's so beautiful. And can you imagine it in that little tank top with the cables? I think it's gonna look so pretty, and honestly I'm itching to cast this one on. I'm gonna cake up this yarn soon, but I have a bunch of other projects that I should get through before this one, because this is very much a summer project. But yeah, hoping to start this in a few months so I can wear it for the summer. And next up, we have another one that's very bright, very fun. This is the Fluffy Crop Top by Lia Like, and it is brioche with 2 strands of mohair held together. I love brioche, but I have never knit something with like just mohair, like 2 strands held together with that kind of open gauge. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm planning to use La Bien Aimée mohair silk in the color Lys. And I don't know if this one is in my color season because it's a little bit like cool toned, I think, but it's a beautiful, vibrant color, and I am excited about, again, having something that's like a simple shape, an elegant construction, and the visual interest really comes from the color and then the slight texture of the brioche. So I think this will be a beautiful like statement piece in my wardrobe. And this mohair is just so soft. It's very pricey, but a beautiful one. And I got this one back in October. I won a gift card through a raffle during the New York City yarn crawl, and this is one of the things that I bought in the raffle. I have another little cake of this as well because it's going to be held double. All right, next up we have a t-shirt. Like I mentioned, I want to do some tank tops and also at least one t-shirt. And this is by the designer Lily Kate France. I've really fallen in love with her designs recently and her YouTube videos. She seems to really pay attention to the construction and the fit. And so this project I want to do is called the Feels Right Tee. It's kind of a tailored t-shirt. It's very simple, but I just think it's beautiful and classic and looks really well constructed and flattering. It calls for a fingering weight yarn, so it fits in with several of my goals in that it's a t-shirt, a summer knit, fingering weight, beautiful, elegant design. And I'm planning to use the Wandering Flock fingering singles in the color Mystic Violet, which is this beautiful kind of like pinky purple, pretty light color. It's not like pastel, but it's also not like a deep dark violet. So I think this fits in with my color season. And I obviously got 2 skeins of this because for a t-shirt. Something I like about tank tops is you can often squeeze by with just one fingering weight, but the t-shirt requires 2. So I picked this up at Vogue Knitting Live, which I talked about in my most recent podcast. And I am already itching to start this, but I know I have a bunch of projects that I should work on first. But I just think this color is so beautiful. I love that there's like this variegation in it. I don't know if this would be called variegation. It's more of like a tonal. And it just has this beautiful depth with the purple and the pink. And I think the t-shirt is going to look so beautiful as just like a plain canvas for this lovely yarn. The last item in my Make 9 is the self-drafted plan that I have, which I referenced. So I have a couple of cotton linen blend yarns I also got from the New York City Yarn Crawl raffle. And I think these would make a perfect striped tank top for spring and summer. And of course I could search for a project on Ravelry, but I think this is a good one to challenge myself to do a self-drafted version for a few reasons. One is that I can kind of clearly envision in my head what I would want this tank top to look like. Whereas sometimes with another yarn, like with this mohair, I knew I wanted to make like 2 strands held together a fluffy tank top, but I couldn't really picture the tank top shape in my head. This one, I know like the exact shape that I want. I want a scoop neck. I want like a bit of ribbing around. Actually, I don't know if I want ribbing on the arm openings, but definitely around the neck, around the bottom. I just want like a classic scoop neck striped tank top. And I didn't get to choose the color for this. It just came in the raffle bag. So this is black. It's from Juniper Moon Farm in the color Arise. And this is their Zoe yarn. So it's 60% cotton, 40% linen. And it is maybe like a sport weight, maybe? Or yeah, because it's 260 meters per 100 grams. So maybe like a DK weight or a sport weight. And then I looked through what they had in the store, and I used my gift card to buy what I thought would be the best match for that tank top. So this is another 60% cotton, 40% linen yarn from the brand Ritual Dyes. This is their Undine DK in the color Quartzite. And this one has a very similar yardage. It's 273 yards per 100 grams, whereas the black one is 284. So I feel like that's pretty close. I do feel like the black one is a lot thinner, which is why I was saying sport weight, whereas this one is like a little thicker, like more DK weight. But hopefully they'll go together well. And this is one that I, again, need some accountability on because I could see myself just, you know, going ahead with all the other projects and beautiful colors and things like that I'm really excited about, and then kind of procrastinating on this one where it is more neutral colors, which kind of is in line with my goals. I want something that's just like a staple, a classic, but it is a little intimidating to draft a pattern. Even as I've become a lot more experienced with knitting, I still just like the ease of looking at a pattern, knowing how it's pretty much going to look when I'm done, and just following the instructions and relaxing along the way. But I think it's an important challenge for myself to draft at least one project this year. I think this will be a good one. Oh, another reason I think it will be good is because the cotton and linen yarn, I think, would lend itself fine to like unraveling if I need to, whereas something with more mohair or even though like single ply fingering, because it's not like tightly spun, might pill or get stuck more. So that's another reason I think these ones are durable and could be, you know, pulled back if they need to be to adjust some things. So that is everything in my Make 9. Definitely let me know down below. Maybe not, I mean, if you want everything in your Make 9, but otherwise maybe like 1 or 2 things you're most excited for. And also feel free to let me know which of my 9 projects you find most intriguing. So hopefully I will find most intriguing. So I hope you enjoyed seeing me sort through my stash, decide some stuff to get rid of, and then also some stuff that I really want to use and align with my goals. And I hope you follow along this year to see how all of this turns out, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.